blow-ups on your face, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we are live now. What I'm gonna do is, um, hi guys, hi. I am so sorry that we've come in 9 minutes late. Um, I was having technical difficulties, still trying to master this new app right here. But we're here now. We've mastered it, kind of. And I have with me Yogita today. So before we start, and I'm very conscious of the time because Yogita is she's in Australia, and I'm very mindful of her time. So she should be in bed right now, but she's doing this with us. And I'm so thankful that she's able to do this with us. So without further ado, thank you guys for coming in. Please share this broadcast if you can and let other people know about becoming their embracing and becoming their authentic self, because today's discussion is going to be so much fun. I love Yogita, I love her energy, and I just love her openness. So it's going to be so much fun. As we go through, the discussions, please feel free to ask questions. Yogita is so amazing. She will help us, with answers. She will tell us more about her stuff, and even traveling. So we're also going to be talking about traveling, which is so much fun, right? And so a bit about ourselves. Hi, Christine. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much. I really love you. So I just want to say a little bit about Her Story Matters and sharing stories. This is a platform we share women's stories. We embrace women. We celebrate women. We celebrate, embrace diversity, uniqueness, and we are thankful that not everyone is the same, because then there'd be nothing to talk about, right? So without much hanging about and everything else, I'm just going to allow Yogita to introduce herself. And as she's introducing herself, guys, please share this broadcast so other people can be able to tune in. Thank you. So, Yogita, tell us about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting to share my story, my journey, and have obviously, some amazing lessons to learn from you as well, because I have been inspired by you. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. So my name is Yogita Ridley, and I am the CEO and founder of Traveling with Me, Myself, and I. So the three of me, myself, and I have been on an adventure of a lifetime, and it is just the start. So this is amazing to share with you. I'm also an author of Finding Me, Myself, and I. Now, Finding Me, Myself, and I is a book about finding your authentic self and learning to love your authentic self. And so today we're going to obviously talk about the power of authentic self, being your authentic self, and how important it is that we are doing that, because there is a saying, and a million people say it again and again, that, do you because everybody else is taken, but we don't actually really practice it. We just use the words, and words are empty without actions. So I'm super excited to be having this talk with you all. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for saying yes, first of all. And I just want us to form a picture of your early life. Obviously, you're in Australia now. Were you always in Australia? Were you born in Australia? When did you go to Australia?
Actually, to be totally honest, this is amazing question. People ask me this every time when I'm traveling. They go, "Where are you from?" Because I look Indian. But every time in a different space, like when I go to Spain, I can pass as a Spanish woman. When you go to Mexico, you kind of like, I'm one of those people that just kind of like, I say I come from no boundaries. There is no boundaries where I come from. So it's actually quite funny. Head to toe, I'm Indian. You can see I'm Indian. I look Indian. I feel Indian. I'm everything an Indian is. I'm Indian. But I grew up in a Western world. I grew up in New Zealand. And now I live in Australia. And I've been in Australia for 2005, since 2005. And I totally forgot math. So yeah, so that long. And yeah, so I don't really connect my identity to where I was born or where I live now and so forth. But New Zealand has been home and it will always be home for me. And my second home obviously is India, but I was never born there. I don't have any relatives that I know of in India. So, but it is just something I just feel home. And then obviously, that's where the love for traveling came along, because I grew up in the tear or the confusion or the mess of two worlds. I didn't belong in the Indian society because I wasn't Indian enough, and they didn't really appreciate the fact that I didn't do things like them. I wasn't cultured like them. Like, when you're born in India, there's different cultures, there's different customs, there's different religions, and so forth and so forth. And in the Western world, I wasn't Western enough to be part of the Western society. So I had that kind of like flick and conflict, and that right from the day go, so to speak. But what I did find was amazing is that I got to enjoy both parts of the world and make it my own. And just like anything and everything, we get challenges in life, and so I embraced being Indian, and I'm very proud of that part of me. And then I embraced being, I raised in a Western culture where there's opportunities and so forth and so forth. And so yeah, there were highlights where I was very blessed, and there were lots of lessons as well. So saying that, I right now live in Australia and called Australia home. And it's a beautiful part of the world where I live. It is Sunshine Coast in Queensland. So if you ever get a chance to come and visit me, do so. I will. I'll be so happy for sure. Yeah.
Well, you've said it now, and we've got witnesses, and I'm recording this, right? So
Yes,
we'll
absolutely. You
probably
have
do this.
witnesses.
We're all moving to Australia. So I'm just gonna give a short shout out. Thank you, Grace, for watching. She's watching from Kenya. Christine is watching from Kenya. We've got Comfort watching from London. Guys, let me know who is here so that Yogita will, know who else is watching and hearing her story. I think it's really good to know where your story and your voice is reaching. That's one of the feedbacks that I've received from people, and it really helps, it really helps to connect. So based on how you were brought up, can you just share a bit about your early life and school? I know when we spoke before, you talked about, being dyslexic, and I think I would love to be able to hear that story. I'd love for you to be able to share that story and how that impacted your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Not long ago, this was something that I would have never talked about. Being a dyslexic child, I was born this way. There is no pill that you can take that will cure the problem, so to speak. And it literally means like there's lots of different learning disabilities. I don't like calling it disability. To be totally honest, it's just a challenge. We learn in a different way. So for me, it really was embarrassing, and I was very ashamed of this part of my whole being, that I'm dyslexic and I struggle with reading. I really struggle with writing and spelling. Spelling is the biggest issue that pretty much every dyslexic person has. This is the sign that we are dyslexic. Our brain doesn't look at letters and alphabets like normal brain does. So basically, right through school, as you could imagine, I was not the favorite child a teacher would want to have, because I didn't, spelling tests, they will give you 20 words and I would not get one right. I mean, I will have all the letters in there, but in different places. And that's what dyslexic mind does. So I started to really struggle with self-esteem because I did not like who I was. I was looking at myself from other people's eyes. I was laughed at constantly as a dumb child. At one point, the teacher said to me that I'm the embarrassment to my class, to my family, because my family, my mom and dad were both school teachers, so most teachers knew my mom and dad. So that was like, a really low point in a child's life, when a child has to hear this fact that, she's an embarrassment to the society, and she's dumb, and she doesn't, she's never going to make anything out of her life. And one teacher said to me, lucky you're good looking, you'll score a good guy, sort of thing. So I was like, oh, okay then. It's like, I'll take the compliment part, not the insult part. But that was the thing that I constantly had the conflict with, because within me, I knew I was smart. Like, I could do things way differently to everybody else did. And I could see things before people could see it, like, predict or future, so to speak. But what really mattered was that exam at the end of the day. And in school, this is how your ability is measured. You're A student, B student, C student. And I only struggled with language because it is all about spelling and reading and writing. My math, my science was amazing, and I was really good at that. But because the biggest part of me really struggled with low self-esteem, everything else was like in the roller coaster kind of a motion right through school, high school, and then university. And at the end of the day, I always had the passion of telling stories, writing stories, and just empowering people with my words. For some reason, I don't know why. Later on, I figured out it was my wisdom, so to speak. But I always had that thing where people will come to me and say, I've got this problem, what should I do? And I was always kind of giving advice and ideas, and helping people with their problems. Never really thought of, oh, this could be my thing. But yeah, so at the end of this whole roller coaster of going through university, I ended up being one of those people who really struggled with low self-esteem, and hated my part of me that was dyslexic, that it just defined me as a person. I was like no one else except for that dumb student or dumb child or dumb person that couldn't spell, read, or write. And it just got to that stage where adulthood came about, and then I became a mom. And then after you become a mom, you just go, I can't be doing this. I need to like take control of my life, so my children are not doing this, like growing up having low self-esteem, because I'm inflicting that. I'm like a mirror, they're learning from just watching me. So yeah, so that
Yeah.
was the waking moment for me to stop trying to blame your dyslexia and embrace it. So yeah.
Now, I have a few friends who've got dyslexia, and I know kind of the challenges that they go through. And I can just imagine how, as a student, you would feel in school. And this is where the system, the education system is failing a lot of children, because not everyone learns the same way. And everyone is creative and unique in their own way. And one of the things that I love about being able to do this is to be able to showcase like different women, different backgrounds, different, challenges they've overcome, because we are not all the same, and the world does
Mm-hmm.
not work like that. And there's something about people with dyslexia, and for me, I see it as a gift, because there's a way that they see life that other people do not. There's a way they form things that other people do not, and that's a really huge skill. So I suppose, how are you bringing up your children? I mean, having low self-esteem and then having children, I think that's kind of like a double stab, right? Because um you want to empower your kids, you want them to feel like they can do anything, and yet how do you do that whilst you don't have that? Because you can't really give what you don't have. What did you do? How was it like for you?
That is an amazing question. And that literally was the turning point for me and my life. And if, in hindsight, if I hadn't had kids, I probably would be still going through that motions of really low self esteem and playing victim and not taking control of my gift. And dyslexia, you're right, it really is my gift, because what dyslexic mind does, it actually is able to solve problems and think outside the square, and they're futuristic, like what is about to happen, I can see it way before the person can see it. We also almost have the sixth sense, because we have to come about different ways of solving problems without trying to spell, read, write in that sense. So we with with where I got to, as a parent, you're right in saying each parent wants to empower their children. They want to, make sure that their child is, doing things that they couldn't do, or they're like, that much more inspiring and living life to next level of what they had. And my low self-esteem, and again, you're right in saying you can't give what you don't have, and I only had low self-esteem, and that's all I was giving them. So yeah, don't take me wrong, I did start the very earliest parts of their lives, I did start to really screw it up, like absolutely, like a nightmare for me, that it was like a roller coaster to total depression, like, oh my god, what am I doing to my children, and what am I doing to myself? And that was when I actually went on a solo travel. For me, it was like trying to run away from my life. And less I knew at the time that you can't actually run away from your life, especially when you have children. You got to come back to them at some point. But that 10 days, and of all places, I did run away from all the way from Australia to London. And of that 10 days, it was not just the fact that I had space and time to reflect, it was also space and time to be alone. And when you are in a space that is totally different and you don't know nothing, like you can't even figure out how to get a cup of coffee because you don't know the streets, you don't know anything. And that is the unknown that you're embracing. And that kind of like was the awakening moment for me to kind of like look and just go, world is so much bigger than what you have in your little backyard. And there's a million people going back and forth. Like I'm standing in the airport, and London airport was like absolutely, I'm literally tugged to the wall because I didn't really know what else to do. That's how many people going back and forth. But in that space, I had this epiphany. Like nobody really gives a shit who I am. Nobody really cares. Like dyslexic or non-dyslexic, nobody cares. Like no one's judging you. Why am I so afraid about people looking at me and judging me, or what their thoughts are about me, whether they like me or not? And that is the biggest sign for lower self-esteem. You constantly want people to like you because you don't like yourself. That really is the bottom line. So the solo travel trip started in that sense, originally running away from myself. And then from actually having that space, finding myself, not really finding myself, but really valuing the little nuggets that I had, the wisdom that I had, the ability to, embrace the unknown, the ability to, like enjoy myself and my own company. And instead of like just sitting in the room and feeling sorry for myself and going like, oh, I'll just eat in the room, I actually got dressed up and went out for dinner. And that was again another funny story. I went down to a restaurant that was not far from the hotel. And the lady looked at me and she says, table for two? I was like, at first I just looked at her and I was like, without saying anything, I thought to myself, do you see another person? But never mind, I didn't really say that. But then she says, I said, no, table for one. And she looked at me from head to toe like, oh, you poor thing, really? And I just had, I'm quite witty in that sense. I went like, well, it's table for me, myself, and I don't know where it came from. It just flopped out of my mouth. And she just looked at me. And I think at that point, she knew not to mess with me. Like, I'm not going to take any of her, whatever she's dishing out. And then she says, oh, you can sit at the bar over there. That's all the single people sit. I said, no, I want a table, like a real table. I sat down and I ordered like I was feeding 10 people, and I drank wine and ate. It was like a absolute freedom. And that, like, it's still, even though that was a long time ago, the first time I did that, it still is like a very powerful moment for me, in a very life changing. And after that trip, when I came back, it was a intention living from that point on, that I'm going to
Mm.
live my life with intention. I'm going to have to do this. And my bigger why was that my children cannot be like, adults with low self-esteem like I am. So yeah.
I think you've triggered some questions within me, and it's areas that I wasn't going to go into. Um, but as you have gone into, as you've touched on those, I just want us to talk a little bit about that running away, because we usually run away from ourselves, and we do this without knowing. And I know you've got experience in, coaching and helping other women and other men. And when we run away from ourselves, it looks like many things. It looks like being busy with work. It looks like
Yes.
exercise sometimes. Sometimes it looks like something really positive. And sometimes when you run away, like the way you did, you ended up finding yourself, right? And I'm not saying finding yourself because you're never really lost. I think it's more of rediscovering yourself and rediscovering what you really can do, because as children, we have that freedom. As children, we have that self-expression, we have, that boldness, because you don't know the boundaries, right? It's only as we grow up that the boundaries are formed around us by other people's judgment and what they perceive as weakness and limitations, right? So I want us to talk a bit about that running away from self, because you must have been running away from yourself in different ways. And
Yeah.
you probably recognize them. I mean, one of the ways that I used to run away from myself was working. And I would say I really love working. So I love what I do, but I was really running away from myself, like being able to deal with things within me. How many other ways did you notice within yourself that you were running away from yourself?
It's actually a very good question. And I meet people, especially women, every other day that have got this problem, that they're running away from themselves, but they actually don't know they are. So you have actually really put your finger onto a very, very sensitive subject, that women deny themselves. Like in my book, I talk about wearing masks. They literally wearing masks because they don't want to face the reality. There are a million and one ways of running away from yourselves, and one of them I see, it quite, normal, is normally working. You are always busy. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you literally live your life through your children. You don't have anything that is yours. If you're not doing that, if you're not doing working full-time non-stop, the other thing is you do everything your partner does. You have no identity of your own self. So everything your partner likes, you like, everything your partner does, you do. You really have no life of your own. So literally anything that you do, that this is an obsession to a there is no balance in life. There is no everything needs to have a balance in life to have like a good mental health and good emotional health and good physical health. So when you don't have balance in life, this is what it will look like. And when I was like, when I do solo traveling, I do meet a lot of women who literally either are running away from something or running to something, but they don't know what they're running to. So that's another conflict that they are having within them. And when I do my one-to-one coaching, like I do personal development programs, and in that program, the biggest thing that women learn is self-discovery. And self-discovery is where you learn your authentic self. Like you literally find your authentic self, because when we are young, like childlike, we have all the freedom in the world. We do anything and everything and we love it. But we get conditioned as we get older, like our parents condition us, then school conditions us, and then, your social interactions as teenagers and rebellious stage, they all condition us, and then your work conditions us, and then your peers and your partners, children, all these things just keeps on going and going and going. So you don't get time to really think about what is it that I like? What is that I want to do for myself? What is it that makes me happy? It's always pleasing the partner, it's always pleasing the children, pleasing the parents, pleasing the boss, pleasing the customers. So you're constantly pleasing others. And that is like the biggest sign of running away. When you stop pleasing people and you use that word that nobody wants to say loud in social media, that you know how to tell people to go away. And when you're able to do that, that's when you are actually, now you are not hiding anymore, you're not running away anymore, you are able to stand tall and say, you are good for me, I want you in my life. You're not good for me, I don't want you in my life. And your life literally doesn't change. So it's like the biggest self-discovery anybody will make with this personal development programs, is that people don't really take this, that it is so powerful. And once you have that authentic power, and when I say authentic power, we all are not the same. So when people do personal development, they sometimes like just sign up for courses, and the courses are done like one size fit all. And you're not one size fit all, you are an individual, you're not going to have somebody
Yeah.
else's problems, you're going to have your own problems. So this is why I say to people, don't waste money on signing up for courses like that. Do one-to-one. And like with my personal development programs, they're one-to-one and they're designed for that individual. I've never met another person that I could use the same program on. So it's totally unique. And it blows my mind every time I meet someone how different they are, even though they have lived a very similar lifestyle, or very, in the same town, of similar parents,
Yeah.
their cousins and so forth, still very, very different people. So
Yeah.
so yeah, running away is a very common thing. And because we don't know what we are doing, we actually don't know that we need to change it. And that again comes to perception, like perception of your life is perfect. You have an amazing marriage, you have an amazing job, you're always working, you're always doing this. And at the end of the day, all those things, if it's extreme of anything, you are running away. So that's how I would define it.
Yeah. You've literally said so many things that I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I want to be able to say this. I want to be able to say that. I want to go deeper in this. And I'm just going to start with a personal development, because I usually say this. And even when I do the personal development, I don't, I understand there's some things that you can have an outline, like, the way you're going to run everything. But I find that personal development is so unique to different individuals. And there's certain programs that you can sign up to, and then you get to a module and you're thinking, but why am I doing this module? I don't, this does not really resonate, but you've bought the whole program, right? And I think when it comes to personal development, it's good to be able to get someone who would be able to work with you um, in a way that you can be able to, because when you're doing certain things, there's discoveries that you get within yourself, right? And we're going to talk a bit about that, because when you're discovering yourself, what happens is you have things within you that are so amazing, they're so beautiful, and you've never come across it because, as you said, your perception was very different. For instance, if you grew up thinking that making money is the only way, and then you start changing your life, and then you discover, oh my goodness, I love traveling, I love being in quiet places, and you love all of those things, then all of a sudden making money is not so important anymore. And I think sometimes we miss out on that because we're running away. We're constantly looking for that thing that we perceive to be very important. So I think personal development really brings you back and says, okay, what is important to you? What can you live without? What can you do without? If you were to die tomorrow, what would you regret not doing? Right? And most people don't say making more money, because you're not going to take that to the grave, right? Most people don't say being famous, because you're not going to take that to the grave. It's the small moments, and it's the small things that, people, we don't really pay attention to, right? Um, so I'm just going to read one of these comments. So Grace is saying, I think this is so common, especially wives and mothers, and you really touched on that. You find that everything you do falls in the category of wifing and mothering. How do you break the cycle without feeling selfish or self-centered? There's so much judgment directed to mothers, wives who want to rediscover themselves. That is a question for you, because I am not a mother, I'm not a wife. So, I am just like epitome of selfish, right? I would not know how to answer that.
Yeah, no, that really is a very good question. To be totally honest, I had that judgment when I first started my self-discovery journey. My very first solo trip, all the people that I thought were like really my true friends really showed their true colors very quickly, because they were like, how can you be so selfish? How can you leave your children at home? How can you leave your husband at home? How can you do this? Like, this is just not right. It's not fair. But at the end of the day, the place where I was coming from, like the reason that I needed to do this self-discovery journey, was not for me. So I knew well, it was for me, but not just for me. There was a bigger picture in play, and there was a bigger power in play as well. Like, I had really felt that power was not just to be the best version of myself, but to be the best version of myself that will inspire my children, both of my daughters, to be the best version of their selves. Because the version that I was at that stage, I wasn't going to inspire my children to do anything exciting. If anything, that would have been me and worse, so to speak. At least, like, I grew up in a family where I had parents that had lots of values and standards and lots of love and support. Whereas my children, in this Western world, their values are very different to what my values are. They call me old school, very Indian mom. Don't go out at night, don't drink, don't go on dates and all that sort of stuff. But to do all those things, I realized that I can't actually tell people to change. I have to change myself, and like walk by walking the walk and talking the talk, sort of thing. So I couldn't really tell my children to don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. But I could do that by being the example. So I had to make a choice. Am I going to do things that is going to please everyone else, or am I going to do something that's going to please my two daughters that are the most precious thing in the world to me? So that was the choice I made. And yes, at the beginning it does feel selfish. Like, if you get a chance to read my book, you will see the very first trip I took, how um, I was literally falling apart on that flight. And if I could, I would probably turn around, come back. But I'm glad I didn't, because the difference I have made in my life since then to now, and the difference I see in my daughters from then to now, that they are also work in progress, and they are inspired by what I do. And that's what all mothers want, that they want to inspire their daughters, they want to empower their daughters, they want their daughters to live a life that they're totally happy with. No mom ever wants their children to have low self-esteem, struggle from self-esteem and confidence, and not be the best version of themselves, or not even try to do what they are born to do. And this is one thing I say quite often, like, each one of us are born to do something. So when you feel that in your guts, like you really have that absolute certainty inside you that drives you. There's no stopping. And like, now I'm doing this not just for my daughters, because I feel every other daughter out there in the world that is struggling will need this help. So that's why I'm kind of like, written this book mainly for my two daughters, and then also any other woman out there that has been told that they're not good enough, they're stupid, or they're not going to make anything out of themselves, they're never going to end up being anything important in life. This is where I
Yeah.
thought, if I don't tell my story, I'm not going to empower anyone or inspire anyone, including my two daughters. So to answer her question, there is, if you are doing something for the better of you, like your best version of yourself, for self discovery, I say go for it. A lot of people have this conflicting perception on spending time on yourself is um is it really sounds like selfish, but there is two versions of it. How in movies you see super rich moms have nannies and they go sit in the spa all weekend. Now that is a definition of selfish. What we're doing is not that. What I'm saying there is like, you are full on hands-on mom. You're there all day every day with them, in good days, bad days, everything in, out. And so if you take 10 days off or 2 weeks off, it is not selfish whatsoever. If anything, you are telling them that this is important, and you're teaching them habits that they will make them more powerful women. So yeah.
I think it's very interesting, the different perceptions, because as women, as young girls, when you're growing up, you do see a pattern. You observe your mother, you observe your aunties, and you observe all that,
Mm,
because you tend to look up to them. And daughters try to imitate their mothers. So if
absolutely.
your mother is very selfless and she's always giving, 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 and not receiving and not resting, that daughter tends to be like that, and the cycle continues. And even before people give birth, like even before people get married, I find that as women we do give a lot, and I think one of the things that we really need to start doing is start saying no. If someone wants to call you and wants to offload on you, and you're not in that place, you don't have that capacity to receive it, you just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't, we can't speak now, we can speak another time. And I think it's a word that we need to learn to start. Gracie saying thank you for that. Thank you for asking that question. And I think it's a word that we need to start using a lot more, saying no, because not everything is beneficial. Not everything is for your highest good. And it just goes back to figuring out what is important to you. Um, what is benefit if you were to die tomorrow, what would you think, oh, I should have done more of this? And I think, especially being a mother, I always observe, especially new moms, and you can kind of like see the perception that they've grown up with, because when they're new moms, there's the panic. Oh, am I good enough? Or am I this, and am I this? And think about, if you already have those struggles before you have the child, right? Because that
Yes.
child did not come with a manual, right?
No.
So you don't have a manual, you don't have anywhere any reference, you're trying to read so many books, they're all conflicting, because everyone raised their child differently and every child was different, right? And already you don't take time out for yourself. When that child comes, you're going to be a real mess, because
Yes.
you're it's kind of like pouring on a full cup already. So
Yeah.
everything is just overflowing, not retaining anything, and that is not good for for the mindset. It's not good on the women's health. So I think your book is really important in that aspect. And it's really good to be able to find a place you can read someone's experience, especially yours. And I find it very interesting when you said that your children say that you're a typical Indian mom, because you don't really fall within that typical Indian. When we started speaking, you don't fall within that. You don't fall as a
Yeah.
typical that, and you don't fall as a typical Westerner. You're in between. You've got both
Yeah.
values within you. Um, And I find that very interesting. And I'm just wondering if in your life you had kind of like a play on identity, if you had like you ever questioned your identity, just thinking about, okay, where am I born? This is how I look like. I've got dyslexia, so I don't fit in anywhere. And then you worked in corporate, and in corporate, everything is slick, right? We just know everything is ironed, right? And I'm just thinking, how did you manage being in corporate with all of this just going in the background? Like that's kind of like an impossible task upon yourself, right?
Yeah, it's actually funny you asked that question. In corporate world, I actually was very successful because I was so good at wearing mask of all kinds of things. Because as dyslexic at school, I was, just literally trying to hide. Like there were moments I would ask if literally God can open the earth and I'll just disappear so nobody can see me in that moment. So you start to wear mask where same thing, hiding or running away. And you get good at it as you get older. You get really good at hiding yourself, your true self, what you really are, because you are embarrassed and you are ashamed, and you know that people are laughing at you. So in corporate world, I did amazing by wearing these masks. I mean, I had the mind to run a business at the most productivity there was. I had the ability, I had this leadership skills. They're all dyslexic mind. So these are the things that I already had, and I knew I had them. I just didn't want anybody else to know it, because if they know that, then they also know my weakness. So that was like, you choose what you want people to see, so you become a person that they see. And this is the reason why I had to do self discovery, because I became what people wanted to see, not what I was. So that was the biggest reason I wrote this book, is that I see this every day. Because when you have been in those shoes, when you see another woman doing it, you know it straight away, that this is what her issues are, this is what her problems are, and this is what she's going through. So corporate world for me is super easy. It's not hard for me. But at the same time, I had to make a decision. And again, coming back to the same place, where what do I want my children to learn? So I had to really dig deep with my personal journey of self discovery and self improvement. Personal, development was the biggest power of this whole journey, where the values, what my values are, how I want to live my life, why I want to live my life this way, who I want in my life, and what I want to leave behind. Like if I was to die today, I would have no regrets at all. I sometimes say to myself that biggest thing, that when you ask people that, if you were to die today, what would your biggest regret be? And they all say things like, I wish I was nicer to my mom. I wish I was, better at being a parent, or I wish I, stopped and smelled more roses, and I wish I went here and did this. And so there are lots of regrets on the list. And ever since I started my journey, my regrets started to drop off. And the biggest thing that I found, that my identity used to be always what people thought of me. And if somebody thought I was typical Indian, I would play that part for that person. If somebody thought I was a Western person, I would play that part for that person. So with my personality now, like with my sorry, I shouldn't say personality, with my self discovery now, I know who I am. I don't play different parts for anybody else now. I just play me. And if you don't like me, you can definitely leave. Please leave. I actually welcome you to leave, because you have no space in my circle. So, yeah, so I have I have come to that place where, like in my book, I talk about, like, your self discovery, your self identity, your self acceptance. Self acceptance played a big part in what I am and what I do, and how I help other women do the same. Is that you do need to know your weaknesses. Don't hide from them. When you, like, the world is so, especially social media now, is so full of these, big, huge, empowering words and motivational words. They, to be totally honest, they're full of shit. You don't need to be talking that way. Like, they will, I don't know if you've seen this image of a lion and a cat, in a reflection.
Yeah.
And I don't like that image. I think the cat is so powerful. Why do you have to become a lion to be someone? Like, the lion has weaknesses as well. So why do we relate to these things? Like, that image is conflicting, because that's what I did all my life. I wanted to be someone I wasn't, but now I'm quite happy to be that cat. I don't need to be a
Yeah.
lion. I'm
Yeah.
very, very powerful being that cat. Like, the powers that I have is enough. It's all I
Yeah.
need, and that's all. Like, I'm blessed with all those gifts. And so really, my identity had changed heaps from then to now. And corporate world has just basically shown me that, I can make money if I really want to be a billionaire, but I
Yeah.
would not be liked by anybody. I would not be appreciated by anybody. I would not definitely be, a family woman whose kids are, will even see me, because I'm always be working. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's been a big change. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love how you've brought up that image of the lion and the cat, because I think one of the things that has happened is because women have suppressed their femininity so much.
Yes.
We've started moving in that masculine energy a lot more, and we've left our feminine selves. And
Yes.
it's very reflective of that, because one of the things that people don't know is, even though the lion is the king of the jungle, he's not the one who hunts, it's the lioness who hunts. So if the lioness does not hunt, the lion does not eat. So that is a huge weakness when you think about
Yeah.
it. And when you think of a cat can just go to the neighbor's house and, you know, it will eat. They will make sure they eat and then they just leave. They have that rebelliousness. They have that, they have that flexibility to move in and out of spaces, but the lion does not. So I really love that analogy that you've used. And I want us to talk about two different things before we close. I want us to talk about masks, because I think that's really important. Um, and you spoke about, excelling in the corporate world, but you had this mask on. And from what you were saying, I can tell that that mask was really was not feminine energy. It was masculine energy that got you to really excel in that. And you being able to tap into your feminine energy, you came to accept yourself, and you came to understand this is more important for me. And you're choosing that it's important for you because you've looked at yourself. You haven't looked at what is around you. You've looked at yourself and made the decisions that are best for you. So just share one of the masks that you wore in corporate, and I'll share mine.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, yeah. So, like, in to with corporate world, there is just the training that you get right through school. So basically, you just have, this is a saying in that I don't like either. Dress for the job you want. Um, and I just go, back then, before the doing the self discovery and self development now, I think, wow, the biggest mask you can actually put on: dress for the job you want. No, dress for what you're born to be. Dress the way you feel the most comfortable. So the biggest mask I wore was literally pretending to be this amazing, speller and, writer and grammar and so forth and so forth. I would hate because with the corporate world, I had people working for me, so I would tell them to do all this writing for me, and then I had no ability to check if they did it right or not in terms of grammar, spelling, and so forth. So thank God for typing. I mean, the computers picking up all the spelling mistakes and so forth. But these masks didn't really help in terms of being successful. What it actually did was start to make me as a person outside those four walls in my office someone who's super depressed and so unfulfilled, because I am not me when I'm at work, even though everybody else sees me as someone I really good at what she does. And also, like, I've never been a very strong masculine energy either. I've always been a very strong feminine energy. I can like step up if I needed to, but I've never really used that. So one of the things that I even as a little child, I always loved wearing dresses. Today I don't really like wearing pants and t-shirt. I mean, like, jeans and pants and so forth, even though I do wear it, but I don't like it. I love the dresses. And it is something about that I've always questioned why, like, I am that way. But I think there's nothing wrong with feminine energy. Like, feminine energy has got that everything we need to be able to be successful in any world, corporate world or not. Like, my business now, it is very productive in terms of how satisfied I am when I'm helping like hundreds of women. Emails come through, and each email will say how they have made such a big change in their lives by just having this conversation, or having done my program or reading my book. And they look forward to seeing me when I'm in their country or in their town, in their city. And that is like worth more than $1 million. And I really can't explain the feeling of it. So I find that I'm more successful this way than being in a corporate box, and wearing a mask, or wearing a you know dress for the job I want, so to speak. But yeah, so it's your turn now.
Um, that's very interesting, actually. I think mine was perfection. So everything had to be perfect, from how I looked to how I spoke to everything I presented, which made me super paranoid in a sense that I had to double check and make sure everything is perfect. And I had set some super unrealistic standards. So even when you get an appraisal and you're told that you did very well, we really love how you work, and all of that, I was still not satisfied with that. I still wanted to take it up a notch. And in doing that, you become super driven, but you're not driven because you're passionate. You're driven because you always want to score points, right? Um, so mine, that was kind of like my mask. And because I'm naturally predisposed to being competitive, um, having that there already just made everything really, really bad. So you're super competitive. You want to, so if you, in your appraisal, if I got a 10, I'm like, yeah, I just want to get an 11 out of 10, right? So, and that's kind of like setting yourself up to impossibilities, right? Because you're already doing exceptionally well. How about just, spending time enjoying that, and kind of like just building on that, instead of thinking on how you can go beyond that. And it's not about going beyond that because you want to better yourself. It's because you want to prove a point, right? Because it's all about proving a point. It's all about perfection, all this unrealistic picture or vision that you've built upon yourself. And I think that was really, really dangerous. It runs you to the ground because you're super exhausted, but you still want to be perfect exhausted, right? And
Yeah,
that's kind of like impossible.
yeah,
You can't be exhausted and perfect at the same time. It's just something's got to be right.
yeah,
So when I left corporate, I was thinking, oh, thank heavens, because it just began a different journey for myself, like just discovering what I wanted to do and who I was. And it was a long, I didn't, mine wasn't as short as yours. Mine probably took 10 years of self-discovery, finding out what I can do and what I can't do, and, what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy. So I suppose the last question would be, how would you advise, based on what you do, what kind of advice would you give people to try to start unmasking, because it takes a while, and being comfortable with themselves. What did you use? What tools did you use to keep start that journey, because it's ongoing, really? What
Yeah.
tools did you use to start doing that?
Yeah, so this is a very good question to end on, to be totally honest. I do talk about this. This is probably the biggest part of my book, how mask has um, done things that has not been very good for me, and how taking the mask off has done things that have been amazing for me. So basically, self-discovery and self-development is a journey that goes on forever. It doesn't stop. It stops when you're dead, literally, because there's so much more that we need to keep on learning and growing and learning and growing. And learning is just not learning for the sake of learning, it's learning to transform yourself. And once you transform to one level, there's next level, and there's next level. You never get to a place where you know everything and you can be the best version of yourself all the time. It's like the cells in our bodies, it renews and then becomes used, and then renews and becomes used. The similar concept in terms of what our mind does, what our emotions do, and what our um, I call it spirit, but you can call it conscious, you can call it soul, whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. So I would say, to give advice on how to take mask off, the very first thing you need to do is actually really um, know your true self. Who is that person that you were born to be, and then how that evolved into who you are now. And that is obviously what the biggest part of self-discovery. And yeah, so if you want like more information, do read my book. I talk about the whole process of how I went through it. And then I have like a checklist in my book that also talks about how to get rid of things that don't serve you. So, toxic people, for example, you need to let them go. A lot of people hold on to them because they think that these people are going to open opportunities for them, or bring opportunities for them, or help them, or make them look good. Whatever it is, you just gotta let them go. The other thing I talk about, this is in my checklist, is the negative self-talk. We constantly do that to ourselves. We gotta let that go. But the problem is we are so conditioned to it, we can't let it go. So we need help, and that's where you do those personal development courses, programs. I'm not a big fan of sign a course to do yourself. I really did waste a lot of my time and money at the beginning of this all when I started by doing that. So I'm trying to save you your money from my bed choices. So I advise against that, because most of the time you get the course, you don't even do it because you never find time. The second thing is, if you do it, majority 90% of it is not relevant to you. There's only 10% it is, because it's actually not custom made. It's made for one size fit all. But if you do find, I was lucky enough to find a I call him my teacher. He doesn't like to be called a coach or a mentor, because those words have been they're overused and underutilized, and overutilized, I should say. And they don't have the same meaning as it did once upon a time. Because to be a mentor, it meant like you had training for years, not like 5-day course online and you're a mentor now. So there is a big difference so I was lucky enough for this particular gentleman who had over 50 years of literally teaching how to use yoga science, how to use Ayurvedic science, how to use neuroscience, and how to unlock everything that I was locked in with my mask. And when you unlock, there is a space where you need that person to hold you together, because you
Yeah.
do start falling apart.
Yeah.
And the falling apart is again the conditioning coming in and trying to kind of like grab you. That we had this concept where the monster keeps on grabbing you every time you open up. So
Yeah.
that's where that support person really helped. And so that's what I now provide for people I work with. provide that one-to-one and that support, because it really made a huge difference to me and my life. So now when I can give it back, it is amazing, amazing to be able to do that. And I mean, I know it sounds like my journey didn't take that long, but I've been on this journey for over 10 years. so and my daughters have seen that, that progress from a total mess. My One of my daughters used to call me a doormat because I didn't stand up for myself, and that was the worst thing that any mother would ever hear or want to hear. And now when she sees me standing up for myself, she just quietly in the background cheers me along. So yeah, so that's the part of how you actually transform from one level to next level to next level. It's almost like planting a seed. You don't see the tree grow overnight, so you got to have a lot of patience and
Mm.
time and trust in the person that you're working with, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love what you said about the patience, because I find that's one thing that people don't really give themselves that patience. They don't give themselves that time. And this kind of conditioning from, okay, by now I should be doing this, by now I should be over this. That conditioning of by 20, I'm going to be doing this, by 30, I'm going to be doing this, by 40. And we kind of like bring it in everything that we do. And it's so true, because
Yeah.
sometimes you speak to people and they're saying, oh, I should be this by now. And I'm thinking, actually, what makes you
No.
say that, right?
Yeah.
And we have a way of looking at other people and we're thinking, oh, they're so far advanced in their journey. They're so, they're perfect, they're okay. But what people don't see is the chaos, because
Yes.
there's always chaos. And this is one of the things that I want to say to the people today who decide to start walking in that journey, or to start um journeying towards it. Just realize that there will be chaos, and it's okay, right? The chaos is
Yes.
fine. It comes with the territory, so expect it, embrace it. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't say I should be over this by now, because it doesn't work like that. When you're over
Mm.
it, you'll be over it. You won't even think about you need to be over it by now. It will just be gone. So everything just works seamless. It's
Yes.
kind of like, I always say it's the difference between night and daybreak. You can never pinpoint that this is when daybreak happened. You can never, if you can watch it all you want, but then it always suddenly happens and you're thinking, wait, when did this happen, right? And
Yeah.
that is how it happens. If it happens with nature, trust it, it will also happen with you. And
Absolutely.
just to add on to like beginning that journey, I would suggest people spend time meditating, and kind of like, just when you meditate, write down the thoughts that come in your mind, and don't judge those thoughts. That's another huge thing. Don't judge those thoughts. As the thoughts are
Yes.
coming, just write them, because one of the things you want to come away from is self-judgment. One of the things you want to come away from is being self-critical. When you're trying to come out from a conditioning to a different way of thinking, to a freer way of thinking. And one of the things that comes with freedom is the non-judgment, the non-attachment. The you're just okay with being okay. Everything is not fine, but it's fine for you, because you know that that's part of the journey. Being able to be okay with not being okay, and being able to just enjoy that transformation. So I think those are really important things for people who are going on, who are starting on that journey, and those who began that journey and got freaked out. It happens to everyone, because you question yourself, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to be beneficial? Oh, it seems like everything's falling apart. Just to reassure you, it happens. And
Yes.
Yogita will attest to this, because she's very open. Sometimes, even as we feel like things are falling apart, and you're thinking, what am I supposed to be doing? Shit, what is happening? How am I gonna
Yeah.
get hold of this? Because let's be real, it happens. And you look at yourself and you're thinking, oh my goodness, how am I gonna deal with this? Right? It still happens, and it's part of life. The only difference is when we get to that place, we embrace it. We don't run away from it.
Yes.
Say, okay, why
Yes.
am I panicking? Where is this panic coming from? And then it's also another element of release. You're releasing that attachment to what you're doing, because it's a continuous process, releasing the attachment, detaching yourself from the end result, because you cannot phantom your end result. You are constantly becoming, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So I just want to thank you, Yogita, once more, and we're going to put a link of your book and the stuff that you do. So those that have feel like they've resonated with this can connect with you and can,
Thank you.
reach out to you. And with COVID, things are now, we've normalized technologies. You can reach out to us. You can do the personal development training online, which is, it's
Yes,
fantastic. Um,
absolutely.
you'll just probably have to figure out the timing. All the way from Australia, I just want to thank you so much, Yogita. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being very open to talk about your journey and being so open to even this process today. I'm wishing you a very good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It has been amazing talking to you. As usual, when you're talking to a like-minded woman, the conversation just flows, and I didn't even realize it's midnight now.
It is.
So yeah, absolutely awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. And to our audience today, thank you so much for watching this. Please share this video. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with Yogita. She's very open. She's going to respond to you. And just keep working on yourself, because you're awesome and you deserve all the great, amazing things coming your way, and more. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being our supporters. Thank you to everyone who's been sharing and everything else. And to the what do we call them again? To those who are going to be watching later, please tell us your thoughts. Would love to hear them. Would love to get your feedback. So that's all from me, all the way from London, saying good night to Yogita in Australia, and saying to everyone else, wherever you are, have a lovely day, have a good night. Thank you.